Hello everybody and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Genesis Invitational DFS Tactics show. We have a lot to get into. It's going to be a fun show for you all. I'm here for all of your last minute questions. This or that player, who you thinking about pivoting to or fading. Hopefully it'll be a better week for us than it was, at least for me, last week. It was a pretty poor showing on my end, so here to attempt to redeem myself. So let's get into the intro here. All statistics tonight are provided by FantasyNational.com. Amazing resource, go check it out. I say it every show. If you don't know the drill by now, I got nothing for you. It's well worth your investment. In the description of the video, there are links to my social media where I post my betting cards, which I will be doing, after the show tonight. And there's also an email in the description where, if you want to be a part of bonus content, you reach out to that email. Make sure that I add you to the list of articles that I write and some bonus videos and such. And then finally, as I mentioned, chat is up live. Let's have some interaction. I want to hear from you all. Who are you thinking about playing, and all that stuff. So without any further ado, let us figure out our tactics for the DFS slate this week at the 2022 Genesis Invitational. So we'll begin with my mixed condition model. Make sure chat is up. I mentioned all during the week how I was pretty confident in a lot of the metrics. It turned out that I was confident in a lot of metrics because I don't have more than 10% in anything, just like it was at the Farmers. I didn't intend for it to be that way. I just happened to turn out that way. So first thing here, 10% in strokes gained total difficult to par. Riviera plays to roughly about average difficult, definitely on the more difficult end of that spectrum. So, does it need to be a full 10%? That's debatable. But as far as I know, and people that I follow in the industry and whatnot, they mentioned how fast and firm this Riviera is this year, even more so than usual. The word that I have been hearing and seeing this week is carnage. So I felt a little bit more comfortable putting extra percent in difficulty. So I definitely wanted to see that. Strokes gained approach, it's obvious, especially if you've been following me for a while. Because it's difficult, I'm going to be putting 10% in around the green. I used that at the Farmers to pretty good success. Turned out to be useful since that course is difficult. Not a lot of greens were hit. You had to scramble for pars, which, speaking of scrambling down here on a difficult course, 5%. 10% on fast and lightning POA, while Torrey Pines can get lightning at times. Riviera has always just been fast, so I don't know if I needed to add the lightning, but again, just seeing the pundits, seeing the analysts and people at the course, I felt like adding lightning might be useful this week for Riviera. So, and I put 10% there. So I went 5 at Torrey Pines. I went 15 at Pebble Beach. Torrey Pines was good. Pebble Beach not so good. So I decided to split the two and put it there at 10%. I went through and looked at the distance factors, especially driving distance, and I came away more and more convinced that 5% needed to be looked at for distance. While it's not an absolute mandatory to winning this tournament, you look at previous winners, DJ, Adam Scott, all that. So distance certainly does help a little bit. We talked about the scrambling, proximity. I mentioned all week how all of the proximities were more important here at Riviera, not just one particular range, which tells me that proximity in general is going to be a lot more important. So I really wanted to put 15% here. I didn't. I just ran out of percent, to be honest with you. But I feel pretty strongly proximity is going to be pretty important. I just realized I skipped over bogeys avoided. I ended up not putting birdies in there. We saw in the data dive last night how important and how correlating bogey avoidance is here at Riviera. So that was 10%. 10% on the par fours and the length of the par fours. I've been mentioning now for quite a while my belief in what the most important metric is. This range of par fours plays the most here at Riviera. 5% in the par fives and 5% in the par threes. And the par threes, at least graphically by Fantasy National, were the least important. And while I'm not disputing that, the Genesis became an invitational in 2020. So in 2020 and 2021, par threes were actually pretty important. Just due, I guess, to the more elite field, smaller field, and whatnot. So I put that at 5%. It could be wrong. It very well could not need any. But that was the reasoning for me adding par threes and at 5%. And the last thing I want to mention here, normally, hopefully, these little designations are kind of easy to read or understand. Last 36 rounds, difficult to par. Last 24 rounds, POA, fast and lightning. The difference starting this week is that now that we're in the middle of February, I feel like there's enough rounds starting from the calendar year that I am starting to just go from the calendar year, except where, last 36 would have to go all the way back to, probably June of last year. Same with POA. POA, I basically went to 1/1/2021 just because there's not a lot of POA on the PGA Tour. But anything you see last 24, starting this week and probably moving forward, is going to be starting at 1/1/2022. So I believe the most rounds was 20, but Fantasy National has just a range between 12 and 24, so I just designated 24. But that's what it is. Anything this is 1/1/2022 to today. And that'll be important to note when we get to the rankings here in a bit. But there's my data model, what I ended up with this week. And when I ran the model, this is the rankings that came out. Will Zalatoris was my number one player, followed by Hideki, Xander, John Rahm, and Patrick Cantley. The 5 probably aren't surprising. The order probably is. And again, this speaks to the, starting at 1/1. I mean, Will Zalatoris has played extremely well since the beginning of the calendar year. John Rahm, obvious. Xander's had a couple of good tournaments. Patrick Cantley, a couple of really good tournaments. So, again, the top 5 probably not surprising. The order probably is, at least it was to me. To round out the top 10, you've got Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, DJ, Scotty Sheffler, and Taylor Gooch. What you'll probably realize is that there's a distinct lack of Europeans. And again, speaking to starting at 1/1/22, there were 5 players specifically that haven't played a PGA Tour round that are normally regulars on the PGA Tour, and that is Rory McIlroy, Paul Casey, Sergio, Thomas Peters, and Robert McIntyre. And so because of that, you'll see that, for example, Rory is rated 61st in my data model just because he has no stats here. Do I think Rory's the 61st best player in this field? No. I would definitely put him higher up on the rankings list. I can go just by what the stats are inputted. Having said that, the stats that are being measured aren't that great for Rory. But he always plays difficult courses well. The irons are going to be okay. Proximity is probably going to be okay. So just be aware of that as we move forward. That Rory let's see. I mentioned him earlier, like Sergio down here, Thomas Peters down here, Paul Casey. Those guys who haven't played around this calendar year on the PGA Tour are going to be lower in my data model. I'm well aware of that. I'm going to adjust for that in my lineups. I'm just being transparent with you all. And that's why it's important to know the scope of the data that you're looking at. It would be easy just to kind of overlook that. But it's important to know, hey, these guys don't have any rounds, so how does that affect not just them, but the rest of the rankings? So let's move forward here and talk about some pricing, some projected ownerships, all that wonderful good stuff. So we start in the 10Ks, and we have 5 players: Jon Rahm, Patrick Cantley, Justin Thomas, Collin Morikawa, and Dustin Johnson. There are 3 obvious plays that people are playing. One's fairly chalky, then 2 guys that are middling in ownership, technically pivots for the area, but they're not unique for the entire contest. You have the fourth most owned player in this range. Second, fourth, and like 7th or so. So Jon Rahm's actually not the second projected most owned player. He's the 4th. I guess people are getting Rahm fatigue or whatnot. He's still a great play. He's the number 1 player in the world. The stats speak for themselves. Like, he's not the best around the green, but he generally makes up for that very well. The second most projected owned player is actually DJ. And it makes a whole lot of sense. If you are a part of the bonus content, then you would know why I'm so high on DJ, why it's just a smart play to use DJ, even if he's just so chalky. If you are willing to eat chalk this week, I highly recommend it be Dustin Johnson. He plays Riviera amazingly. He hasn't missed a cut since, I believe it's 2013 here. That is the official curse that I've given him now. But he plays Riviera fantastic. None of these stats pop, are eye-catching except for maybe proximity. But again, there's just something to say for course, comfort, course knowledge. So DJ's the second most projected owned player in the field, Rahm 4th. The other, quite usable or being used player projected owned is Patrick Cantley, and I hammered all last week, especially last night's Wednesday DFS show. I don't understand why Patrick Cantley is the pivot in the 10Ks, and he played, playoff runner-up. He's getting more love this week, sitting at about 14%. That combined with the price tag is not necessarily keeping me away, but certainly suppressing the amount of Cantley that I intend to use, especially since I've just said, if I'm going to eat chalk, it'll be DJ, just because just because it's chalky and obvious doesn't, it's a good play. The 2 pivots then are Thomas and Morikawa, and you can see that I am lower on Collin Morikawa. He is number 1 on difficult courses. He's number 2 in avoiding bogeys on difficult courses. The strokes gained approach, again, just remember this is from just this calendar year, so he's not the 27th best iron player in this field. That's what's suppressing, his ranking a little bit as well. But I can foresee a scenario where Collin Morikawa struggles. If the fairways are really that firm and run out and whatnot, guys are going to be missing fairways anyway. He's not the longest. So if guys are generally, just to throw out a number, and I don't know if it's going to be accurate, 20 or 30 yards closer than Collin Morikawa, then his irons are just going to have to be that much better. They usually are, but it's a non-zero factor. And not to mention that I think this week, due to the difficulty, is going to be a short game contest, a short game tournament. And that is not Morikawa's strong suit by any means. So I can foresee a tournament that Colin Morikawa struggles. So if that happens, I will be glad that I limited my use of Morikawa. Now on the flip side, if I use a very little of him, this could become a ball striker's heaven, and Morikawa eats it alive, and I lose again. So I am going to use the narrative that I think it's going to be a short game type event, and limit my use of Morikawa. But in the 10Ks, it's pretty obvious for me that DJ is going to be number one. Honestly, I would probably go Justin Thomas 2 for the simple fact that he's only at 12.5%, which is not very chalky in relation to his peers in this price range. And then Rahm, Cantley, Morikawa. Moving to the 9Ks, we have Xander, Rory, Victor Hovland, Hideki, Scotty Sheffler, Cam Smith, and Brooks Koepka. Darnell, how you doing, pal? Hopefully things went well last week in DFS for you. Did not for me. It was quite ugly. But who are you thinking about this week? I don't know if you just joined, but I was giving a spiel about how I think this is going to be a short game event. With Riviera being supposedly fast and firm this week, the fairways are going to be difficult to hold. Guys are going to be scrambling for pars. I think it's going to be a chipping, scrambling around the green putting event. So what's your take on it? I'd be curious to hear what you've got. Who are you pivoting to, fading from, and all that. But in the 9Ks, like I said, I'm highest on Xander. Pretty obvious. I mean, he has really good stats across the board. California guy, fits that narrative. He's just solid. I mean, he's good on POA greens. He's good around the green. I mean, look, his worst stat is scrambling on difficult courses, difficult rounds, and it's still in the upper half. So there's a lot to like with Xander here. Now, having said that, he is the fourth most projected owned player. DJ and Xander are probably a couple of pieces of chalk that I'll be eating. Just it is what it is. I talked about Rory in my preview of the rankings, why that number is so low. I'm going to use Rory. That's why he starred, even though he's so high in my rankings, or low, however you want to say it. I'm going to use Rory, but there is something to be said. If coming off of Abu Dhabi and Saudi, all that stuff, I mean, there could be not necessarily rust, but it's just a different style of course, different weather, different game. So Rory, Sergio, Paul Casey, they could struggle, or they could be world beaters. So I don't know. I'm willing to lose to Rory and Paul Casey and Sergio this week. That is what I'm choosing to lose to. Kind of down on Victor for the same reasons that I'm down on Colin Morikawa. This, I think, is going to be a short game contest. Victor's struggles around the green are well documented. Now, he does putt POA extremely well, but he's generally not a good putter, usually. So, we'll see. But there's enough here to be worried. Par fives, even though he's one of the best, ball strikers in the world, he struggles with the par fives. The par fours aren't great either. There's enough to be worried here. Hovland might be a complete fade for me. I don't know if I'll have no exposure, but I wouldn't be surprised with a zero. Hideki, Scotty Sheffler, Cam Smith. Seeing Brooks Koepka this high in my data model tells me that this should be a Brooks week. He never rates out well in my model. I mean, last week I think I had him in the 90s, and was real upfront about it. You know, hey, he never rates out well in the model. He's a defending champion. He likes this course. He probably should be higher, and he ties for third. And I lost because I said if Brooks plays well, if Louis plays well, I'm just going to lose. That's what I chose to lose to. I lost. I really like Cameron Smith for the reasons that I don't like Morikawa and Hovland. Short game guy. Now the putting is not as good as you would want, but I mean everyone knows about Cameron Smith's short game. His chipping, plays these difficult courses well. Not short by any means. He never used to be great off the tee, and now he's hitting fairways and has the distance. So it's there's a good combination there. So I like Cameron Smith a lot. As far as in terms of ownership, you got the most projected owned player in the field in this range, and that's Rory. And that also helped me. It helps fuel the if he plays well, I just lose. But if he doesn't play well, I'm gaining a lot of leverage on the field if he's the most projected owned player. So I will take that risk. Elsewhere in the 9Ks, you've got Hideki, who's about 4th or 5th projected most owned. I understand Hideki plays this event well. It suits his game. You know, anytime Hideki is not extremely red in the putting, you should take notice. You know, it's still not fantastic. It's 66, but you know, it's not 106th. So there's something to like here for him on the surfaces at Riviera. Let's see. Other Cam Smith's pretty chalky. He's at 16%. There's one pivot in this area, and it's a little surprising. It's Scotty Shuffler. Now, last week, I don't think was a fluke. I mean, everyone knew a win was coming. They just didn't know when. But it's like Tom Hoge last week. Just because Tom Hoge won Pebble Beach, I wasn't going to pick him to win last week. Or last week in Phoenix, I should say. But, you know, it still didn't make him a bad play in DFS, and he was a complete pivot. And the only reason I didn't lose everything that I put into DFS was that I had Cantley, Hoge, you know, these guys that had been playing pretty well just weren't being used. And I see the same with Sheffler this week. I mean, yes, the putter is bad on POA. It just is. You don't like the par 3 scoring that he has. But the guy, I mean, he's just coming off a win. He's 4th best in the field in difficult rounds to par. The irons are playing well. He's great around the green. Again, I'm not picking Scotty Sheffler to win the tournament. So he's at 8%. Rory's projected at 17. It's 100% plus less ownership on Scotty Sheffler to Rory McIlroy. So, you know, if I'm gravitating in this area, yeah, I'll be using some Hideki. I'll be using some Cam Smith. In terms of DFS, I love Scotty Sheffler. I just do this week. I think it suits well for him. Great at the par 4s. Great at the par 5s. You know, distance, if that becomes a factor. So there's a lot to like with Sheffler. So in this range, Rory, it's going to be hard for me not to use him at all. But I have enough reason to, you know, think about not using it at all. And certainly I'm going to use very little. Hovland's a fade for me. And I'm only doing that because of the narrative I'm sticking to, that I think it's going to be a short game event. And even though his putting is really good on POA, he's generally not a good putter, so that could fall off. You know, so if I had to rank the 9Ks, I'm going Sheffler because of the pure pivot aspect. Although, if you were talking about best plays, it's probably Xander. So in this range, I'm going Sheffler, Xander, Hideki, and those three are pretty clear above Cam Smith, and then Brooks. Brooks, to be fair, is a pivot at 5%. I'm sorry, I didn't see him because I was thinking he was at 8,900. He's at 5%. Again, seeing Brooks at this high in my data model, which he doesn't rate out well historically in my data models, for him to be this high tells you that you should probably be paying attention to Brooks Koepka, especially since he's coming off a fantastic tournament. He's 5% owned. It's one of the best players in the world. So yeah, don't be afraid to use Sheffler. Don't be afraid to use Brooks. Again, I'm not choosing them to win the tournament, but in terms of DFS, all systems go. 8Ks, we have Jordan Spieth, Will Zalatoris, Sam Burns, Sung Jae, Bubba, Tony Finau, Max Homa, Adam Scott, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and Taylor Gooch. So the difference between somebody like Matthew Fitzpatrick and the aforementioned, Rory and Paul Casey and Sergio, Fitzpatrick's been over here. So he has enough data and rounds to gather some meaningful insight into. And he's been playing well. So, you see here, he's top 20 in my data model. There's enough to be concerned. He doesn't scramble the best at par threes, but of all these elite players in the field, you got the DJs, the Hidekis, the Roms, the Xander. Look who's number one in par 5 scoring. It's Matthew Fitzpatrick. At least so far in this calendar year, it's Matthew Fitzpatrick. Irons, really good. Putting on POA, really good. Around the green game, I'll say good. Good to possibly very good. Strokes gained par 4, elite, maybe not elite, great. So I like Fitzpatrick a lot. I like Sungjae quite a bit. You see the number one player I have is Will Zalatoris. We'll get to him. I like Sungjae quite a bit this week too. He's played this event not very well in the past, but everything lines up that I think should be pretty good. The proximity is a little worrying, but he's best in the field around the green. He's best at scrambling on difficult courses. Par 5 scoring is good. Top 10 putter on POA surfaces. There's a lot to like with Sungjae. So let's come back to Will Zalatoris, number one in the data model. And remember, when I went through the overview of the data model, anything that says last 24, those metrics are just from 1/1/22, the calendar year. So Will Zalatoris, being on the heater that he is, rates out the best. And a lot of people are going with that. He is the projected third most owned player. That's some chalk I'll eat as well. So I'm already eating a lot of chalk. DJ, Xander, Hideki to some extent, now Zalatoris. That's the chalk I'm deciding to eat, which tells you that I might have some guys for you in the lower areas of the price board. But, there's a lot to like with Will Zalatoris. There's one true pivot in this 8K range, and I like him quite a bit, honestly. That's Jordan Spieth. A really good pebble, and then the waste management was clunker, to be fair. But how many times do you expect Jordan Spieth to be -5.5 short game? I don't expect that a lot. That's for sure. Now, he's probably not this Jordan Spieth that was there at the Pebble Beach, but I would say he's much closer to this than he is this. So when you're getting Jordan Spieth as a pivot, I'll take Spieth. He's at 6%. So, he is more than 10% less than Will Zalatoris. So if you don't want to eat the Zalatoris chalk, you've got Spieth. That's 100 more. Normally I'm a big Sam Burns guy. It also helps that he burned me last week, so seeing him rate out this low in the data model certainly helps. I'm the Jaded X lover this week. No thank you, Sam Burns. I'm not there with Bubba. I'm not there with Finau. Max Homa is your defending champion. Even though the around the green is really bad, a California guy, he grew up on Riviera, basically, loves Riviera. Yeah, if you believe in course, prior success at a tournament, you're going to want to take DJ, probably Hideki, and Homa. I mean, it'd be chalky, but if you're a big believer on prior course success, those are guys you're going to want to take. And he's about middling of the road, 10%. So you've got one pure pivot, as I mentioned in Jordan Spieth. The real chalky person in this range is Will Zalatoris. Again, third most projected owned. And then you have Fitzpatrick and Gooch to varying degrees of use that are still pretty chalky. Everyone knows that Taylor Gooch is a FOMO for me, so I'll have an outright wager on him almost any week that he is above 20 to 25 to 1. I just like Taylor Gooch's game. It's balanced. It's a lot like Daniel Berger's. He's just really good. And that win at the RSM really, I think, catapulted him into the upper echelon of the PGA Tour. I don't think he's elite, but I certainly think he's in the upper echelon. There's my look at the 8Ks. 7Ks, high 7Ks. Fortunately, there is not that many this week. Russell Henley, Mark Leishman, Joaquin Niemann, Sergio, Jason Kokrak, Abraham Answer, Kevin Gnaw, Paul Casey, Tom Hoge, Seamus Power, and Alex Noren. Again, same thing, Sergio, Paul Casey, same thing with Rory. You don't have any measured rounds on the PGA Tour since the beginning of this calendar year, so it's hard to get a gauge on where they would fall in the sense of in the rankings. I mean, they are certainly lower than they would be. I mean, you look at Paul Casey, strokes gained, par on difficult courses, he's 6th. I'll call it top 25 in bogeys avoided on difficult courses, so there's quite a bit to like on Paul Casey. Again, Tom Hoge. I mean, there will be a week where Tom Hoge falls off, and I will fall off with him, because I'm going to ride the hot hand while it's hot. The guy's playing great. He was a pure pivot last week. Looking here, he's not a pure pivot, but he's only at 8%. If I can get Tom Hoge at 8% and get anywhere close, I shouldn't say anywhere close. If I can get, the production that I've gotten here recently, I mean, even a top 15, I would only expect to win, but, you get a top 15 out of a guy at 8% ownership, you're making up some ground on a lot of your contestants. Now, the around the green game was not good last week, but it's generally okay. The irons have been really good lately. The putter, be wary of it just because a lot of it is predicated on this one tournament. Now, the positive for that is that this was on POA when he gained all this stuff. He's generally not a good putter, but I mean he's basically field average. I mean, look at the y-axis here; it's almost 0. So there's enough to like with Tom Hoge. Ride the hot hand. Let's see others in the high 7s. Henley, great with the irons. Par 3 scoring and par 5 scoring really good. He does struggle a little bit on avoiding bogeys on difficult courses, but he's an iron player. He's going to rate out well on my model. I like Joaquin Niemann this week. Again, scrambling can be an issue, so it is a little worrying to see that he is middling in the short game area, but if it does not become a short game thing, I mean, he's good enough that if it's a short game thing, he'll survive, but, his irons are good, so if short game isn't as prominent as I think it will be, I mean, the irons will play. He's good enough on difficult courses. I mean, he's top 20 in avoiding bogeys on difficult. I think I said avoiding bogeys over here. This is scrambling on difficult. Top 20 in proximity. There's a lot to like with Joaquin Niemann this week. Let's see. And the other person I want to highlight in this area is Kevin Gnaw. And you probably wouldn't think Kevin Gnaw, and Riviera. But he has played this event generally pretty darn well in the past. And again, with the short game narrative that I'm going with, Kevin Gnaw is one of the better ones to go with. It's very rare that you'll see him 52nd and around the green. That just speaks to the elite level of the field. Good putter on POA, 9th in proximity. Scrambling when it's difficult, Kevin Gnaw. 20th in bogeys avoided on difficult. The irons are good. Like Kevin Gnaw, take a look at Kevin Gnaw. And he is at 9%. So, I mean, he's not a pivot, but he's certainly not chalky. And again, the off the tee, I think is going to get mitigated because I think a lot of people are going to be missing fairways this week. Now, the issue with that is, like Collin Morikawa, he doesn't have the distance, so his irons are going to have to be that much better. But I trust him to get up and down and around the green a lot better than Collin Morikawa. I mean, you can see here all the rounds in the positive and, consecutively 6 at the WGC St. Jude. Gained 8.5 strokes just around the green at the Northern Trust. I mean, that's hilarious. That's look back at your competition and smile and wave and drive off kind of numbers. So I definitely wanted to highlight Kevin Gnaw for you all in the 7Ks. I think he's a pretty good value. Yeah, he's at 9% ownership, but considering others in this area and the chalk, you've got Paul Casey at the same exact price point. He's at 11.5, and again, I've mentioned 4 or 5 times now. Like, I just don't know where Paul Casey's going to be. He just doesn't have any rounds on the PGA Tour. He's not rusty. He's been playing, but I don't have stats on the DP World Tour, so what his finishes are, I don't know. And then you've got Henley and Leishman to some extent getting some play. So the pivots in this area are Sergio, Kokrak. Abraham Answer is only at 3%. Now, I can understand why I'm not the highest on Abraham Answer this week, but he definitely plays difficult courses well. The putter plays on POA. There's not a lot else to like, but if it really does truly get difficult, Abraham Answer is going to be okay. He'll survive. So if you want to go with that narrative that it's just so extremely difficult that you want to play the best guys on difficult courses, you want to consider Abraham Answer. Let's see. Hoagie, I mentioned 8%. Seamus Power, 7.5. So there's enough here that you can get away from the chalk, but it seems like contestants are kind of not using the high 7s. Speaking of the low 7s, we have Luke List, Patrick Reed, Thomas Peters, Tringali, Siwoo Kim, Corey Connors, Tigala, Griffin, Bezadenhout, Bradley, McNeely, Robert McIntyre, Adam Hadwin, Mac Hughes, HV3, Ryan Palmer, Eric Van Rooyen, Johnny Vegas, Molinari, and Carlos Ortiz. In the low 7s, a couple of guys that I want to highlight. Lonto Griffin. I would have to check and see what his performance here is at Riviera, because I'm not sure right offhand. That's be part of the XL portion. But, like Fitzpatrick, him and Fitzpatrick are the best at strokes gained par 5 at this tournament. And that's, from this calendar year forward, but, par 5s. Look at this. Look at the iron play this calendar year. I mean, elite. Around the green, great. Putting on power, great. There's a lot to like with Lonto Griffin, and he sits 72. Where is that? I mean, he sits at 10%, so a lot of people are, I shouldn't say a lot of people, are checking in on him, but I really like Lonto Griffin this week. I'll be having some Lonto Griffin in my lineups. I like Tringali this week. He's another player that people think his first win will be coming sooner rather than later. I am one of those people. He's going to win sooner rather than later. Is that this week? Probably not. But there are signs. There are reasons why you would like him. best in the field in scrambling when it's difficult, best in avoiding bogeys when it's difficult, fifth best when it's just difficult. So just like Abraham Answer above, if you want to go with the difficult narrative, you're going to go Answer and Tringali kind of as your core and your middle of your lineup. So there's a lot to like with Cameron Tringali. Luke List, he's just on a heater. A lot to like there. Keegan, iron play. If this does become a short game contest, especially putting, no. You just got to hope that the irons and therefore the proximity are close enough to make up for this disaster. Bobby Mack, same thing as Sergio and all that. I just don't know where the game is. Actually, I take that back. I was trying to do a little bit of research on Bobby McIntyre because I'm the least familiar with him of the four other guys, Sergio, Thomas Peters, Casey, and Rory. He is coming off 2 straight top 15s on the DP World Tour, so he is coming in with form. I didn't check Casey, I didn't check Peters, so if you have that information, by all means put it in chat, put it in the comments. Would love to know how these guys are playing so I can adjust it kind of live with you all. But because I was the least familiar with him, I did see that I did a little bit of research. He is coming off 2 top 15s, so he's in good form. And look at the metrics that are measured. Difficult courses, top 20, top 25, top 15. The guy can play tough courses. He's in all the majors. He's in all the WGCs for a reason. The guy can play. If it's a short game narrative and you want to really lean into that, look at Mac Hughes. But in the low 7s, you've got one extremely chalky play and a few other guys that are getting considered. But even more so than the high 7s, this area is getting forgotten as well. Save for a few guys. So Luke List is the big chalk in this area. He's at 14%. That's quite high. Then you have the aforementioned Lonto at 10. Adam Hadwin, I mentioned in the data dive. He's been playing well. I'm probably going to use him again. I've had some success with him. He's at 10.5, probably due to the putting. Now, not on POA, but his irons are dialed in right now. They've checked in. He's best in proximity this calendar year. Top 10 in par 3 scoring this calendar year. Adam Hadwin's been playing well that a lot of people haven't noticed just because he hasn't won or been top 5s on the leaderboards. But you got a top 15, a top 25, top 25 this calendar year. Now the Farmers wasn't great, but everyone throws in a clunker every once in a while, so lots of like with Adam Hadwin. Other than those, Thomas Peters is getting some love as well. And again, I just don't know enough about Thomas Peters' results lately to tell you. But everybody else is a legitimate pivot, like Patrick Reed, 3.5%. Tagala, last week's, what looked like he was going to be the winner. He's at 4%. Mac Hughes, 4%. Molinari, 4%. Ryan Palmer. Let's talk about Ryan Palmer. First off, you'll notice that he really doesn't have a bad stat. His worst stat, 67th, is, bottom half on par 3s. Putting on POA, great to excellent. Irons have been really good this calendar year. Proximity, therefore, has been really good this year. He's 10th in driving distance this calendar year. Ryan Palmer. He's, he missed the cut at Pebble, and he played pretty darn well. He just didn't make enough putts to make the cut on Sunday. But he gained 2 strokes with the irons, gained a little bit more than a half off the tee. The Farmers, top 20. Sony, top 15. And let's check his. I clicked the wrong thing. And you check his Genesis results. Nothing is fantastic, but he is 4 for 5 in his career, 2 for 2 in the rounds that I collect. The around the green this year, or the year he played this, was really bad. I don't expect him to be this bad. Take a look at Ryan Palmer. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised if you put him in your lineup and try to pivot off some guys, especially off of Luke List, who is sitting at 14%. Ryan Palmer is at 3%, so 11% less on a guy that, yes, I would expect Luke List to play on average better or finish higher than Ryan Palmer, but Ryan Palmer can. People don't think about him. He'll top 20 with the best of them. He'll T18, T23. He's just a solid PGA Tour guy. So I like him a lot. Let's get into a few of the 6Ks before we start making some lineups, check the win and such. And I talked in the data dive how it worried me that Troy Merritt was popping on a whole lot of models. And he'd been playing well. He was having some success, but it seemed like everything that we were talking about, the putting on POA, the irons were really good right now. He's coming off a top 5 and a middling finish there. Like, I was worried that Troy Merritt was going to be high in my data model. Well, it turns out he was, but not as high as Andrew Putnam. Andrew Putnam, not long by any means. So if it is fast and firm, and guys are missing fairways, then clearly the guys that are long are going to get just that much more of an advantage. But you look here, since the calendar year started, top 20 in par 4 scoring, top 25 in par 5 scoring, and it's not like he plays difficult courses bad. He's top 15 in scrambling when it's difficult. He is, middle of the road and avoiding bogeys when it's difficult. Joey, hey, you know what? No apologies needed. Jump in whenever you can and join in the chat. So I appreciate you tuning in when you had the chance. But yeah, Andrew Putnam. Look at the putting POA putting performance. That's elite. Par 4s. The irons are good enough. I thought it was going to be Troy Merritt. It's actually Andrew Putnam that I'm going to have a bajillion times just because he's 13th in my data model. But look at these results this calendar year. Top 30 at the Sony, top 15, top 10. Now, Phoenix last week was bad, but, I would think the putting would be a bit of an outlier, especially since the week before on POA he gained 2.5. He's generally a good putter anyway, so this seems a little bit off. If we check his prior performance at the Genesis, it is quite middling. He did have a top 35, a middling-ish finish last year. But the putting plays well here, and then 2 miscuts the years before that. So it was surprising to see him 13th. Do I think he's 13th? Probably not. But there's enough to like here. And when we look at projected ownership, Andrew Putnam's at 1.5%. So that is a complete pivot. In the 6Ks, you've got one guy that's getting a lot of love. I understand why. It's the California narrative. It's Patrick Rogers. He is at a full 9.5% projected ownership, again, per Fantasy National. So guys are coming off as far down as Patrick Rogers to fill out their lineup. So I'm imagining that's probably why, especially the low 7s, but even to a lesser extent, the high 7s are getting kind of ignored because guys are coming down to Patrick Rogers and are comfortable with it. But if you're wanting to come off the Patrick Rogers chalk at 9.5, I wanted to highlight, Merritt's still a good play. Highlighted Andrew Putnam. Matt Jones, if this is a short game tournament, like I think it probably will be. Look, 18 and 3rd in around the green and putting. And it's not like he's, it's part of the around the green, but scrambling on difficult. Even par 4s this calendar year, he's been good. So there's enough to like with Matt Jones, especially if you're leaning into the short game narrative. Pat Kazire, Pat Perez. I've talked about Knox the past 2 or 3 weeks. He's still there. The one place I want to go, and it's the same price as Patrick Rogers, actually, is James Hahn. And we saw him on the Data Dive show, how he was 4 for 4 at the Genesis at making the cut, at least in the past 5 years. He was 4 for 4 with an average finish of a top 20. And he had been gaining strokes in all 4 umbrella stats, off the tee, approach, around the green, putting. Now, there are certainly enough metrics to be concerned about. You know, he's not long. He doesn't play par 4s very well at all. His proximity could get wayward a little bit. But there's enough to like here at 6,500. The same price as Rogers. You are getting, let's see, let me scroll down here. You're getting James Hahn at 5.5. So 4% less ownership than Patrick Rogers. You're getting a great iron player. Better than Patrick Rogers has been at least this calendar year. You're getting a guy that avoids bogeys on difficult courses. He plays par 5s just as well as Patrick Rogers has this calendar year. Don't sleep on James Hahn, is what I'm getting at. Don't sleep on James Hahn. So those are a few guys in the 6Ks I wanted to highlight for you all. Let's move over to Wind Finder as I adjust here, just to get an idea for the wind. I mentioned that the wind could pick up at this place. Like, you remember last year, or maybe it was the year before, they had to suspend play in the 3rd round because it was so gusty that guys couldn't putt. The ball wouldn't stay still. That's not going to be the case this week. You got tomorrow, beautiful, high of 64, chilly if anything. Friday, beautiful. Saturday, Sunday, even now. If this comes in Sunday, it'll make it interesting, but it's projected for Monday night. It looks like a beautiful week for golf, week and weekend for golf. Let's move over to Microsoft Excel and start generating some lineups here. Let's see. Let me switch the view. Microsoft Excel. All right. So for those who play tiers contests, let's run through that real quick. Again, I'm not an expert on tiers. I don't generally play tiers lineups. But for tiers, you've got tier 1, John Rahm, Patrick Cantley, Justin Thomas. Pick one. They're all right next to each other in my data model. I imagine if there is a pivot in the tiers, it'd be Justin Thomas. So I'm okay with that. John Rahm's the number 1 player. Patrick Cantley's playing great right now. Pick one. Tier 2, Hideki, DJ, Morikawa, Rory, Victor Hovland. I think that's it. Yeah. DJ and Hideki are probably going to be chalky. I would probably pick DJ just because of the prior course success. I don't hate Hideki either. Sorry, I was looking down like Morikawa. No. Rory, I just don't know where his game is. So for me, it's DJ and Hideki. Tier 3, Will Zalatoris, Xander, Scotty Sheffler, Cameron Smith, Jordan Spieth, and that's it. So no on Spieth, at least in tiers. Cameron Smith would be okay. I personally am going to go Zalatoris. He's number 1 in my rankings. But if you think the tiers ownership is going to be the same as... Sorry, I realized that my camera is still not centered. If you think the tiers ownership is going to be about the same as classic lineups, then take a look at Scotty Sheffler. I think he's going to play well this week. I'm not going to pick him to win. I'll never pick somebody to win back-to-back. But for him to be at 8% projected ownership is... I don't understand. Tier 4... we have Sungjae, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Max Homa, Adam Scott, Brooks Koepka, Bubba Watson, Sam Burns, and that's it. So I had to scroll for Burns and Bubba. No, thank you. Brooks, I can understand. He's in, he got the rust off at the Waste Management. This seems like it would be a decent tournament for him. No thanks on Adam Scott. Max Homa, your defending champion. I imagine he's probably fairly chalky. I don't mind Fitzpatrick. I'm going Sungjae. Tier 5, you got Taylor Gooch, Russell Henley, Joaquin Neiman, Mark Leishman, Jason Kokrak, Tony Finau, and Sergio. Sergio and Tony Finau, no thank you. Jason Kokrak, no thanks. Leishman, same. So that means Gooch and Henley are probably going to be the two chalky options. I'll go Neiman, at least in a tiers contest, thinking that I'm going to be unique. But, these two aren't terrible options either, but I'm going to go Neiman. Tier 6, Luke List, Tom Hoge, Siwoo, Patrick Reed, Ricky, Molinari, and Tagala. If you want to ride the hot hand, I understand Tagala. Plays college golf at Pepperdine. Knows POA probably pretty well. Used to California golf, so I can understand it. I'm not there, but I can understand it. No thanks on Ricky. No thanks on Molinari. Let's see. Patrick Reed. If it is a short game event, Patrick Reed is somebody you want to consider. Siwoo, So for me, it's between Hoge and List. I'll ride the hot hand in Hoge. Let's build some lineups here. All right, let's see if we can figure out a chalky lineup that it seems like people are building, and see how we can combat it. So let me make sure chat's up. So I'm gonna try again, as I always do. I'm gonna try to use different people, and there's enough good players that we can mix and match who we think people are using or whatnot. So if you want to see different guys in lineups and such, just holler in chat, and we'll make it work. Just because he is, the number one player in the world, people know and whatnot. We're going to start with John Rahm. Let's see. If they're going John Rahm, then we mentioned earlier that they are comfortable coming down to Patrick Rogers. So let's define the boundaries there. You got 6,500 at 9.5%, and in two players, you're already matching a little over 4% of the contestants. So some other chalky plays here. If we try to fit McIlroy in here, then we're gonna have to come down to the sevens, and for example, like Luke List probably is in this lineup. You still got 7,500 per. Maybe they're going Adam Hadwin, and let's see, that's 8,000 even. That's that's Taylor Gooch. So there is a look at probably a fairly chalky lineup. Again, just under 14% projected ownerships or projected lineups in a big tournament style contest. So if you're wanting to combat that, it depends on what chalk in this lineup you're willing to eat. For me, it's going to be Rahm or Gooch. I'll stick with Rahm, and let's see if we can build some lineups around Rahm that aren't nearly as chalky. So I'm going to try to get under 10% here, knowing that Rahm is so widely owned. So I mentioned it while we were going through the 6Ks. Same price as Patrick Rogers, plays Riviera, the Genesis, very well. Just to prove that, here's James Hahn. 4 for 4, averages an 18th place finish, and off the tee, good. Really good with the irons, really good to really good with the around the green, and the same with the putting. That's a recipe for success, no matter who you are. So I like James Hahn, and we're in the same boundary as the chalky lineups with Rahm and Rogers. And then depending on how you want to build this team, whether you want to go Starsy and Scrubsy, or if you want to try to fit in another higher price guy. So let's try to fit another higher price guy like they did with Rory. The real high upside play is Sheffler. Let's go Brooks. Coming off a very good week. in good form. You know that is at least healthy. Let's go Brooks. We have 7,700 per. Let's see. You come down here to the low sevens. I mean, I mentioned Ryan Palmer that I like this week. That gives us a whole lot of money to play with. If you want to come up a little bit higher, if you're a believer in last week, Tagala. Or not a believer in last week, but trust that the form is there. The California narrative of Pepperdine and whatnot. Tagala at 7,300. We still have 8,000 per, which, again, if you want to play Taylor Gooch, you can. He's really damn chalky. But if you want to do something, say you want to take Max Homa, the defending champion. You got Max Homa, who plays Riviera really darn well. You're left at 7,600, which is Kevin Gnaw, who I talked about. Again, I'm going to ride Tom Hoagie. I will lose the week he doesn't play well. I'm going to ride the hot hand while it's there. And we have a Rom Koepka lineup. We have at least so far, the consistency. Well, especially we have the consistency at Riviera with Max Homa. We've got the hot hand and Hoagie, the high upside with Tagala. And we're kind of hoping James Hahn makes the cut and beats Patrick Rogers at the same price. That's a lineup that I'd be comfortable putting up against the other one in the same fashion. If we are not doing Rom, then it looks like the popular play is obviously Dustin Johnson. He's the number one projected owned player for obvious reasons. He loves Riviera. And if they're going DJ, they are more than likely going Rory or Schauffele. So because we use Rory with Rom, let's do Xander. And again, I don't want to use Patrick Rogers. There really isn't a whole lot that people are using down here. Like I'll say Wyndham Clark. He's at the same price as Hahn and Rogers. He's at 7.5 instead of 9.5. Again, I'm just doing it to present different names, but more than likely it's Patrick Rogers in this chalky setup. We used Luke List and Adam Hadwin last time. Let's try Lonto. They're probably kind of eschewing a lot of this mid-range. Like, I don't see them taking an 8K. Like, I could imagine them doing like a Lonto, Wyndham Clark. Maybe they are doing like Wyndham Clark and Patrick Rogers. And then Lonto, I mean, that gives them 9,700. Oh, look at this. This is the lineup that people are, well, if I can type it out right for you all. It's not as chalky as the ROM one, but you go DJ, Xander, Rory. Now their bottom is speculative, but I mean, you got three of the top players in the field. If we're trying to avoid the 10Ks, we're going to start. I mentioned Brooks. I'm going to start Scotty Sheffler, and we're going to go pretty ultra balanced. Now, there's not a lot of pivots that we can take, but we can stay away from a lot of chalk as well. I mentioned how Jordan Spieth, the last tournament on Polo was Pebble. Now, granted, he usually plays Pebble pretty well, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't play well here, and especially if it's a short game tournament. You got Jordan Spieth. Let's define our bottom here. I've mentioned Ryan Palmer, Lonto, Siwoo. Surprisingly, Corey Connors is at 7,300 and at less than 5% ownership. If this is a ball striking competition, ball striking event, Corey Connors at 7,300 feels like a steal. So let's use him as our bottom player, our boundary, and then we have quite a bit of leaderboard leaderboard price board to work with, and guys that aren't chalky. Let's see. I mean, we can do like Joaquin Neiman or Russell Henley. Sung Jae. I like Sung Jae this week. Now, again, these aren't pure pivots, but you see here, I mean, like, our highest projected owned player is just Sung Jae at a little over 10%. And then this leaves us at 8,100. That's Matthew Fitzpatrick. He's pretty darn chalky, but just in the interest of filling out all 50,000, we now have a team that's only at 8.5%. Pretty darn balanced. We've got the upside in Sheffler and Spieth. I would say the consistency with Sung Jae. Fitzpatrick's consistent. Russell Henley's consistent. So while it might not have the highest upside of a DJ or a Rahm winning the tournament, I would feel pretty good about this going 6 of 6 and then taking the chance on the weekend. If there's any other ideas that you guys want to holler in the chat, let me know. I'll be on for a couple more minutes, but otherwise I might throw some other lineups here together for you all. Again, like I said, I'm not the biggest on Hovland this week. Let's do a short game narrative, like I was mentioning as I was going through the rankings board. And I said short game. Let's do a difficult. Let's do if the course plays extremely difficult. So I mentioned how those two are going to be like the heart of your lineup if it's just difficult. I know I scrolled off the lineup, but I'm just kind of getting a feel for strokes gained total of difficult. I mean, there's Scotty Sheffler again. There's a name for you if you want to be speculative. Let's try Robert McIntyre at the very, very bottom. I always do that. So there's a bottom of the team. If it truly does get difficult, and then we can go. There's Tringali. We can do like a Spieth or a Morikawa and a Rory, Hovland if it really is difficult and not the short game. Let's see. Let's do Colin and Rory. I know we've used Rory a little bit, but Colin, Rory. That leaves us with 78. Sergio, Joaquin Neiman. I'll just plug in Joaquin Neiman just to finish out the show here. But there's another lineup that is following a direct narrative. So if the narrative doesn't play, you can just throw this lineup out. This is designed for people who enter tournament style contests where multiple entries are in and such. Like if you want to follow it's going to be difficult narrative and want to ride that narrative and try to get a 6 of 6 through, that would be one of the lineups you could do. So, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Best of luck this week and weekend and all of your DFS contests. Let me know in the comments, like who'd you wager this week? Who did you pivot to? Who did you fade in DFS? How do you think the course is going to play? Keep me up to date on how your teams are doing and such. So, again, thanks for the support. Really appreciate it. For all of the wagers you made this week at the Genesis, for all of the contests that you entered this week at the Genesis, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.